Hello my dear students, welcome to computer science class. In today's video class, let us begin with a new chapter, that is function. Already we have encountered the terminology function when we were discussing the problem solving methodology, that when we were discussing about the procedure programming technique. So what is this function? Function is nothing but it's a named group of statements which has been developed to solve a given subprogram, and it returns a value to the functions when it has been called. So if you remember the diagram when I was explaining the procedure programming, the main program was executing. At certain point of a time, it encountered a function called known as sum. When it encountered a function known as sum, the control would jump right from the main program to the location where the subprogram sum was being written. After that, a sum procedure was being executed, and once the sum procedure executed, it would return back its value to the main function. So that is what is a function is, how the function actually works. It's actually a group of statements, okay, which has been developed to solve a given problem or the program, subprograms, which would return a value after it gets executed. A series of instructions get executed. It will calculate the calculation, whatever the sum or subtraction or multiplication, it would calculate and return that value back to the function, okay, where it was called actually. Now let me explain this one with an programming example so that you can clearly understand how we are implementing the functions in the programs. Now here comes a program to calculate a factorial of a given number. Here I am using an header file known as iostream. It is because of cout and cin functions, and I am using conio.h because I am using the getch here, followed by the main function. And here I am using the function prototype here. What is this function prototype? Why we need to use, see, before I use my function, this is my subprogram you can call, or you can call it as function I can call it, or you can even refer it as a procedure also. Alright, so before I execute this subprogram, you need to intimate the compiler that you are going to use a subprogram. So we need to define the prototype here. What's my function name? That's a factorial. How many arguments it has to take? One argument. So what its data type you have to mention here, and followed by your subprogram data type, that's an integer. So this is how we'll write a function prototype. That means you are telling the compiler that you are going to use this particular function in your program for the later use. Then followed by, I have taken two variables of type integer. Next, I am asking the user to enter the number. Now here comes the important statement, that here is a function call. So this is a function name, and how many arguments it has to take? One argument, and what that argument should be I have to mention here. So this is a function call. When the compiler will encounter this particular line, the compiler will make a move right from, it will make a jump right from your main program to, and it will go in search of where you have written a subprogram known as factorial. Once it encounters here, it first matches the function name. Match has been found. How many arguments? One argument. Match has been found, and once it match is found, and then it will start executing these set of instructions or these set of statements. Now herein I have taken a variable known as f, which is initially initialized to 1, and then I have taken a for loop because I want to calculate the factorial of till a given number. So initially I is equal to 1, I should be less than or is equal to n, and I plus plus, right? So initial value of I should be 1, so 1 into 1, f will have a latest value as 1 here, I gets incremented, okay? F remains 1, 1 into 2, that is 2, again I gets incremented, so this 2 into I, when I gets incremented, I would become 3, so 2 into 3, that I would have got 6, like this, up to the given number. You can give 1, 2 or 3, 4, whichever the given number, up to that the I gets incremented up to the given condition. Once the condition fails, it will terminate this particular for loop and control jumps to the next statement where you are returning the f. Suppose if I give the factorial of a given number, if I want to calculate of 5 factorial, so if I say 5 factorial, it is 120. So the what exactly here the value I get after the iteration and everything, here I'll get the value of f to be as 120. So after executing these series of steps of instructions, we know that function would return a value to the where you have made a function call. That means what? Return f in the sense return 120 if I give the n value to be as 5. So when you use a keyword known as return will take your calculated answer where you have made a function call, and then it will replace it with its answer, and the same answer is being stored in a variable known as fact. I hope children you are able to understand. Now this step is nothing but it's actually a function call. When the compiler encounters this particular line, it makes a jump right from your main function to the subprogram, execute these series of instruction, and after it executes, it returns the value back to the function wherein I'm storing its returned value in a variable known as fact, and next step I'm printing the factorial of a given number and I'm printing the variable that is value fact, because the fact is consisting of a value that is 120, and finally get ch. Now this is how actually the functions are implemented in the program. Therefore, what is the definition of a function here? Now this is a function. Function is nothing but these are the named group of elements. What is named group of statements? In the sense what? This function is being given with a name known as factorial. Therefore, we call it as a named group of statements. What are the group of? These are the group of statements which are being developed to solve a subproblem. So what you are actually being written, these certain steps, these are being developed to solve a factorial of a given number. After it solves, it returns the value to the other function. Which is your other function? Your other function is main here. So it returns the value to the other function when it is called. It returns the value at this particular point. I hope children you are able to understand. Now, whatever these subprograms we develop, they are actually independently compiled and tested. That means they are error free, so that we can use these subprograms in the other programs also. That is what is the functions. Moving on to the next here. There are two types of functions actually. The first function is the library functions, which are also being referred to as a built-in function. The next one is user-defined function. Now what is actually the library functions are? The library functions are nothing but they are the collection of predefined functions, okay, and other programming elements which have been accessed through the header files. The library functions are built-in functions like iostream.h, stdio.h, stdlib.h, conio.h, iomanip.h. So they're actually already, it is a collection of predefined functions like what exactly? Cout, cin, CLR, SCR, yes, get ch. Already those functionality of those particular functions are already predefined. Such functions we actually call it as library functions, which are built-in functions. What is user-defined functions then? User-defined function is a complete and independent program which could be used by the main program or by any other subprograms. Now I can say this is a user-defined function. To calculate the factorial of a given number, I have given this I have created this particular subprogram. So I can call this as an user-defined function. For my purpose, I have created this particular subprogram or the function I have created. So wherein the user-defined function is a complete independent program. It's completely independent of this. Okay. It's completely independent. So which could be invoked or which you can make a call by the main program or by any other subprograms also you can make a call. Such kinds of function we usually call it as that is built-in function. But here you can see these are the library functions. These are the user-defined functions. I hope you are able to understand. So the functions which are inbuilt, we call it as the library functions which are being called by the user, which are being created by the user if in order to perform some specific task, we call it as an user defined functions. Let us move on to the next topic, that is library function. Then how do we use these library functions? Library function could be accessed through the header files. So all the header files have been containing the standard functions that our program may use, like as I mentioned, some stdio, io.h, conio.h, iomanip.h, isn't it? And we are using a directive known as hash include directive, and we are writing those header files in by using the angle brackets. I hope you are able to understand. These are the angle brackets, isn't it? These are the library functions where we are using a prototype known as hash include. This is a directive, and then we are mentioning the header file in an angled brackets followed by an extension known as .h, which indicates it is a header file. Let us move on to the next topic here. What is a user defined function? As I already said, user defined functions are independent subprograms. Subprograms can also be referred to as functions, as I said, okay, which would be defined by the user. Previous program example, factorial, it was being defined by the user or the programmer in order to solve a specific problem. Okay, such functions we usually refer it as user defined functions. Then there can be more than one user defined functions in a program. See, if I want to calculate a program based on arithmetic calculations, if I have to perform, then I may write only one main program. All the programs will be having only one main program, and then I may create a sub function for sum, I may create a sub function for subtraction, I may create a sub functions for the multiplication. So through the function call, I may execute the sum, subtraction and multiplication, and after they execute, they will return a value to the main program. Like this, one program can have one or more user defined functions as per the depending upon the which program you are going to deal with. Then so to execute user defined functions, it must be called by another function or the main function. See, until and unless you make a function call, the subprograms or the sub functions will never get executed. So we should make a function call from the main function or any other functions you can make a call. Then only those series of instructions or those series of statements would be executed. Like in our programming example here, children, we made a function call. If I had not written this particular statement, then the series of statements will never get executed. So it is very much necessary, if you want to execute the subprogram or the functions, you need to make a function call, either made from the main function or some any other functions. I hope you are able to understand the concept here. Yes, moving on to the next one here. The main purpose of using a function is to make the program design process easy and understandable. Isn't it? When you look at that factorial program, it is quite easy because there the function, what short function we have written, it is very clear to understand, and any programmer or any other person, when they have a glance over it, they can easily understand. See, if a program, if it is too lengthier, okay, and and it consists of more operations to be performed, it becomes very complex to understand and it becomes very complex to manage. In that case, what we can do, we can divide the entire program into sub-programs, and we can connect those sub-programs to the main module just by making a function call. So this looks very simpler and it is easy to manage. That is the reason why we are going to study the functions. Okay, I hope you are able to understand. Moving on to the next one, the different header files. Now we are dealing with the library functions one by one. The first library functions that we are going to study is stdio.h. So this stdio.h is a standard input-output library function, okay, which contains the functions and macros to perform some standard input-output operations. So what is macros? Macros is nothing but it's a small piece of code in your program wherein it will be given certain name for it. So when the compiler encounters that name, it will actually replace with its actual code. So those are said to be as macros. So you don't worry much about it. You just need to understand the standard input output header file is the one which contains the functions and macros to perform what kind of an operations, that is input output operations. And we have already know about these functions. What is scanf and printf? Scanf is nothing but it is one of the reading statement. So this scanf is actually used in C programming, like how we have the cin statement in order to read the input in C++ programming language. The same way scanf is a function that is used to read the input, okay, that is through the input devices, like it might be the standard keyboard as an input device. Next is printf. Printf is nothing but it is used to display the output, okay, on the standard output device, that is monitor. Like how we have a cout in C++ programming, like that we have printf in the C language. So scanf is a reading statement and printf is a displaying, that is printing the output onto the screen. Next we have getchar and putchar. Getchar is nothing but it is used to read or get a single character from the keyboard. Suppose if I give enter a character in the sense actually you need to give an input of single character, isn't it? If at all if I want to read only the single character, then you can use this one of the built-in function, that is getchar. Putchar is nothing but if you want to display that whatever you have read the character, if you want to display or if you want to write that single character onto the standard output screen, then you can use this particular putchar. Then what is next is gets functions and puts functions. See, gets function is nothing but it is used to read the string input from the keyboard. If you want to read only a single character, then go for the getchar. If you want to read the entire string, more than one character if you want to read for, then make use of the gets function. Similarly, the puts function also, if you want to display or if you want to write the contents onto your output screen more than a single character or the string, what you can call. What is a string? String is nothing but it's a sequence of characters which are enclosed under the double quotes. Suppose if you want to print a word known as computer or a word known as C++ programming language, so then it is a string actually because they are the sequence of characters. In that case, if you can go for the puts functions. So these are the different header files that comes under the library function known as standard input output header files, which is in short we call it as stdio.h header file. See, if you want to use any of these built-in functions, if you have to use, then you have to make use of an header file by writing the preprocessor directive known as #include in the angle bracket stdio.h. I hope children you are able to understand. Apart from these, there are many library functions which are being given in your textbook. You can just have a glance of it, which you people have to use, which you have already used in your programming language. Only those some of the library functions I'll be discussing. Okay, moving on to the next library function here, children, that is string functions. I hope you are very much well familiar with the string functions because already we have discussed in this string function in our previous chapter. But anyway, this string function is a one which will help you to manipulate the strings, and it also helps in memory manipulation routines actually. So how it will help you to manipulate the string, in the sense you can compare the two strings. Okay, we can use a built-in function known as string compare. If you want to find out the length of the given string, then you can use the string length. You have a different kinds of functions, built-in functions, which you can manipulate the strings. And plus it is also helping for the memory manipulation routines. Memory manipulation routines, in the sense we have here the function, one of the function known as memory copy. Okay, memory copy. So this memory copy is a built-in function that is used to copy a memory block from one location to the another location. You can copy the contents. Next we have the memory move. Memory move in the sense you are able to move the whole memory block from one position to the another position. Memory copy is what you are creating a replica of that particular memory block. Suppose at 1,000 address, if you have a contents like for array of 5 elements, if you are having at the address of 1,000, like okay, of type integer, again 1,000, again 1,002 you have some value 6, again 1,004 you have some value like that, 1,006 and 1,008. So this is a memory block. Okay, so if you want to same content, if you want to copy it in some other place, then you can use one of the memory manipulation routine known as memory copy. Suppose if you want to entirely move that block and you don't want to have a replica of it, instead you want to just move a memory of block from one position to the another, then go for the memory move. Similarly, again we have a string manipulations functions here like string compare. String compare, it will help you to compare the two strings, given strings. Okay, now here it is a case sensitive. If you write a word known as computer in uppercase and a word in a computer in lowercase, it's two different words actually treats us, because it goes on to the ASCII value comparison. So here it important here is it will consider the case and it will give it as unequal. Okay, it will say that those strings are not same, they are not equal. When you go for string compare I, it will ignore the case and treats that computer in lowercase and uppercase to be as one. Okay, next we have string copy. So that if I have one as a string, another I have an empty string, then you can copy the given string into another string. String concatenation, that means you can club the two different strings as one word, like Karnataka as one string, state as one string. So Karnataka, if I want to combine those two strings, then I can go for string concatenation, which will give me the output to be as Karnataka state as one word. String reverse, if I give the word as wow, W-O-W, if I give and it will reverse, again I'll be getting W-O-W. Similarly like that, madam, teacher, table, you can reverse any of the given string. And finally the string length. Suppose if I want to know the length of a given string for the word computer. So for the word computer, if I give the string length, if I use it, gives me how many number of characters are there in that particular string. So these are some of the different string functions which we are going to discuss under, which we have discussed under the header file known as string.h. If you want to use any of these library functions, then you have to include the string.h header file. Moving on to the next header file, that is stdlib.h. stdlib.h is a standard library function. So this contains the functions that is used to perform the conversions, searching and sorting. So conversions, if you observe the first function here, it is A to I. Already we have studied this one, A to I and I to I, isn't it? A to I is a one which will convert a character string. Which will convert a character string to an integer value. That is what it is, A to I. Actually it converts the given character string to its integer value. What is this I to A? I to A is nothing but it converts the integer data type to its character data type. Okay, then next we have free. Free is a one which will deallocate the memory block which was been previously allotted using calloc or the malloc. Suppose for an example, when you execute any of the programs, certain memory will be allotted for that particular program. How many different variables you are using, depending upon its data type, memory will be allocated for that particular program when you execute it. But after your execution of your program, you would like to free that particular memory. So in that case, you want to reallocate. If you want to, whatever allocated memory you wanted to free it, then you can use a built-in function known as free. Next we have is malloc. Malloc is nothing but it will allocate the requested size of bytes. Suppose if I give int int a of 100, that means what? We are going to allocate the 100 elements of type integer. So how many bytes you're asking for? Each 100 elements, each of 2 bytes. So how many bytes you're asking? 200 bytes you're asking. So how much ever you are requesting, that much amount of memory block will be allocated by using a function known as malloc. Then what is a calloc? Calloc is nothing but it also allocates the space for the elements of arrays. Okay, and initially it will initializes all those array elements to be as 0. So these are few of the library functions that belongs to an header file known as stdlib.h. If you want to use any of these functions, include this particular header file. Moving on to the next header file, children, that is iostream.h. I hope you already know about this iostream.h here. So this is a header file that contains C++ streams, that is, and it deals with an input-output routines. So we know basically cout and cin, which are used to printing statement and reading statements, which are used in C++ programming. Apart from that, we also have the different kinds of functions that belongs to the iostream. That we have the first one as get function, that is used to if you want to read any character, we are using that function. Then getLine, we are having getLine, which will allows you to read the string. Okay, it will allow you to read a string or a line from an input stream. Then we are going to use a getLine function. Suppose if you have two words like computer science, these are two words with a blank space. So if you use it, if you read that input from by using cin, then it may read only the computer. Once it encounters the blank space, it will think that it's an end of string and it may not read the further contents. But getLine, by using that computer blank space and then followed by science, even it encounters the blank space, it keeps on continue reading the entire string until it encounters the null character. For that sake, we are using the getLine. Next we are having the EOF. This function stands for actually end of file. Okay, so it actually checks out whether the line has been reached to the end of file or not. Next we have the close. Close is nothing but it allows to close the file which was been opened to read or write. So depending upon which program you are dealing with, these particular functions are used. Suppose if any files are being opened for reading and writing purpose, if you want to close that file, we are using one of the built-in function known as close. Similarly, we have open function here that is used to open a file for reading purpose only. If you want to read only the contents, then open option will be used. If you want to use any of these header files, any of these built-in functions, we have to use an header file known as iostream.h. I hope children you are able to understand. So few more functions are there that we shall cover up in our next video class. Take care of yourselves, children. Thank you.